Wednesday afternoon. Mike, welcome back. How was it?
What have you guys been doing? Go away.
Catch up later. I'll bring you up to speed. Okay, let's begin with a karakia to open the meeting.
Whakatau ki tūru, whakatakiau ki te tonga, kia mā kina rita, kia mā taratara ki tai, kia hiaki ana te atakura, he tio, he hoka, he hau, tutu, mawiti, whakamala, ki te tina, huie, tākia.
Okay, just one item on the agenda. Oh, do we have any apologies just from Alan and Neil? I'll move those apologies. All of those.
Happy to
Susan seconded. All of those, hopefully, say aye.
Aye.
Against? There are none. And Jonathan, Abby, Donna, and Bonita on Zoom. Can you all hear okay?
Yes, thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Steve, would you like to introduce the
All right, look, you've obviously got the heads of agreement here, and I'm going to hand over to Helen, who's going to lead you through a bit of a PowerPoint to explain where we're at and the process that is proposed to be entered into with this heads of agreement. So, Helen.
Kia ora tātou. Ko Helen Gray tōku ingoa. I'm the Establishment Director looking after the future local government partnerships activity. So thank you, Steve. We'll be sharing the presentation on screen. We'll take you through as we go. Just make sure I can see the laptop. Thank you. Some of this presentation will cover ground I'm sure you're broadly aware of, but we just thought it would be good to make sure everyone's on the same page and hears the same background and context. And if I am speaking too quietly, please let me know. I'll try and speak
Helen,
up.
could we trouble you to speak a little louder, please?
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, so you warned me about that, Liesl, sorry. Okay, so simplifying local government, the original proposal from central government was to remove regional councillors, to establish combined territory boards or CTBs, undertake a review of council functions by March 26, with legislation to be passed by mid-27, and only once reorganisation plans were approved you would implement from there. On the 5th of May, the Head Start pathway was announced. So this is a voluntary streamlined option for councils who are ready to change now. It's been confirmed that the focus is to form new unitary authorities. So instead of developing a regional reorganisational plan, the intention is to submit an outline proposal by the 9th of August that can cover all or parts of a region. Another slide does outline the predetermined criteria that central government has provided. But for those that don't progress, for those that do progress, beg your pardon, officials will work with those councils and regions to progress towards a more detailed proposal due in March 2027. It's made quite plain that the new planning system remains core business for all councils. So who can submit a proposal? It can be 2 or more territorial authorities or unitary authorities. It can be regional and sub-regional groupings and can be cross-boundary. They must represent a majority of either the directly affected territorial authorities or population across directly affected areas. They are being quite clear that unfortunately regional councils are not permitted to provide a proposal. Central government has made note of those regions that would qualify for 2 or more unitary authorities, but only if the region is large and has complex issues, and the proposal clearly meets the criteria and doesn't lead to the fragmentation of regional functions. As mentioned before, this is the assessment criteria that's been delivered as part of the Head Start proposal. I won't read them all out loud, but deliverability, supporting a new planning system, the simplification of local government arrangements, economies of scale and maintaining local voice. Those are the pass-fail criteria, if you like, for any outline proposal. And this slide just covers that timeline. So outline proposals to be submitted by the 9th of August. Cabinet would take around a month to agree those proposals and communicate which proposals are moving forward or not. We can't forget there's a central government election quite quickly after that. But all in all, final proposals, those that go through the Head Start, would be due sometime in March next year, with legislation introduced later that year, with implementation in between May and October 2028. Sorry, Liesl seems to have frozen. Cool, thank you. This is far too small for you to be expected to read, but I wanted to give you a sense of the type of activities that we would need to undertake if we were in a Head Start pathway. We're already week 3 of a 13-week time frame. We would need to undertake initial options analysis and evidence-based gathering. We'd need to be testing and refining that through targeted engagement with both the community and stakeholder groupings. And we then need a healthy amount of time to get through participating council decision-making processes. So it's an extraordinarily swift timeframe. There is a backstop approach for those councils that don't progress through or choose not to progress through the Head Start or are declined with their outline proposals will be subject to the compulsory backstop process and will begin following the 2028 local elections. There's a sense that an interim body would be formed to govern regional councils and develop plans for regional reorganisation, but that membership of that interim body is still to be determined. The intention is that those regions, councils going through the Head Start process would inform and influence the backstop model and would reflect the learnings of that process. But it would be enacted before nominations open for the 2028 local elections. We do want to point out, however, that the statutory reorganisation process through the Local Government Act is still in place. It's still within legislation. So when looking at the Local Government Commission website last night, they're quite clear, and I note that quote down the bottom. The Commission's role and responsibilities remain unchanged. The Commission is required to continue working within the current legislative framework and will do so while monitoring developments. So we do see that as a viable option at this point in time, although it would obviously carry uncertainty as the legislation process progresses. So the title of this slide I want to kind of reiterate. So while Head Start is voluntary, we do believe that readiness is essential. In fact, putting the pen down for the next year simply wouldn't be a good option. We wouldn't be recommending that. What we see as track A, being Head Start, if it was progressed, would be the decision point today, developing an outline proposal for August this year and a final proposal by March next year. But it's important to note that that is unitary authority oriented. It does utilise that predetermined criteria that we've gone through this afternoon, and councils can shape design within those parameters. So it's really looking at those configurations within that second tier of governance. Track B would be the Local Government Commission or backstop process, where we would run a remarkably similar process, but would be the evidence-based or case for change, undertaking full functional and service analysis, leading to options analysis and design. So we would be undertaking the LGA legislative pathway. It would provide us more time to do this work at a more comprehensive level, but as mentioned, it comes with higher uncertainty and risk. So to the heads of agreement that's in front of you this afternoon, the intention is to have a sense of shared ambition and principles across participating councils. It does seek participation in the Head Start pathway. Joint resourcing and funding across participating councils with an agreed work program being a structured analysis and service delivery options supported by evidence, as mentioned. It proposes a governance model with an oversight committee and a steering group, which would have more direct oversight of the program itself, with defined review points which are in line with the legislative pathway, the policy pathway. There is an explicit review point in September 26. So I do want to be clear that the Heads of Agreement positions Taranaki to proactively shape its future, ensures decisions are informed by robust analysis and evidence. It would provide us with a structured way to test options against government expectations, and maintains clear elected member oversight and council decision making at key gateways. It does not commit councils to a final model or outcome. We don't want to predetermine the outcome until we've done the work. It doesn't predetermine how it would work in a Taranaki context. It certainly doesn't remove the council's statutory decision making role, nor does it limit the council's ability to reconsider or withdraw along the pathway. If we were to pursue the Head Start pathway, the time frame is mentioned 10 weeks remaining of a 13-week pathway. We'd be able to define the problems and objectives, confirm some assessment criteria in addition to that the Head Start criteria outlines. We could develop and test options at a high level, confirm financial assumptions. We do need to engage with our Te Tiriti partners and undertake targeted community and industry stakeholder engagement and prepare an outline proposal. If that was accepted by Cabinet, the next stage is a much more deeper dive and detailed analysis of that, so refining the preferred option and design, more robust financial modelling and cost-benefit analysis, confirming the governance and representation arrangements, working closely with our partners and the community, developing the service delivery and operating model, and therefore preparing a detailed proposal by March next year. So we do see there is choice here. There are 3 options for consideration. While the Heads of Agreement in the report in front of you this afternoon does recommend Pathway 1, there are others. But Pathway 1 is Head Start, which we progress the rapid governance level proposal development in line with that pathway, while concurrently standing up a structured program to review functions and services. Pathway 2 would be to utilise the Local Government Commission pathway, which would, as I mentioned, would buy us time, but does have a level of uncertainty. And Pathway 3 is the do-nothing option. It's to pause any activity and await central government backstop legislation before progressing. Do very much want to reiterate, Head Start is a voluntary pathway. Irrespective, we do recommend that analysis, service level analysis, functional analysis continues, which would require a level of resourcing and work if we as a region would like to proactively have input into a future model. So I appreciate there's a very quick whistle-stop tour through, but that's the context and background we wanted to give you this afternoon for your discussion.
Thank you, Helen. Anybody got any questions at this point in time for Helen? Clear as mud?
Just one back, like that we've got the 4 councils here. We're making a decision on our own, and I take it that they're doing their decision today on their own. So we won't know that outcome until either we've done or not done, to see if they're all on the same page or not. And that sort of leaves us a little bit of uncertainty, doesn't it?
Well, I think it's a case of do the right thing, and they will do the right thing for their constituents. And we can't try and figure out what they're going to do. We just have to know what we're going to do.
So, yeah, I think the Heads of Agreement is a mechanism with which to progress this and provide the governance structure. Obviously, if will still be work to do if the others or all of the others don't jump on board with the Heads of Agreement, Steve.
Yeah, look, assuming assuming you want to be proactive about influencing reform, because there's an option to do nothing and take whatever government dishes up in 2027. And obviously we have got an election in November 27 as well. So the policy, depending on the outcome of the elections, who knows what future government policy may look like. But assuming you wanted to be proactive and have a influence, input into what may come after the current model, then progressing some work is a sensible thing to do. Even if the other three councils said, no thanks, it's not for us, seems to me one of the important things that this organisation could do is package up, here are the range of services we deliver and the benefit we add to Taranaki communities. And as you think about the future commissioners, CTB or whoever may assume responsibility for the functions of this organisation in the future, here's our view on how you might best organise those. And as I said, in terms of the question about the LTP, leaving behind a 10-year plan that says, here are the things that we think are important to address the long-term journey we're on in terms of environmental management issues across the region is incredibly helpful. So I would be suggesting that you do some work anyway, even if nobody else is interested in carrying on with the work. Yeah, to leave a clear package that says, here's what we think is important for you to think about as you look at future management of the environment within Taranaki, given what we know today.
Fortes fortuna juvat. Fortune favours the brave.
So
everybody needs a bit of Latin in their lives, don't they?
So regardless, I mean, we've got until end of 2028 in our roles governing the regional council, and I believe that it's our job, and we owe it to staff, and we owe it to this organisation, we owe it to the legacy of the regional council and the work it's done to make sure that we set everything up for whatever the future holds for it. We've got a few questions online. Bonita, I'll start with you first.
Kia ora tātou, ngā mihi o te wā. Just wanting to note my conflict as a local government commissioner in this space regarding those conversations, but also referring to potential for option 2 in the local government commission pathway. That is also a one-way track, that once you enter into that process, there is no stopping it. There is nothing in the legislation that enables the council to then pull out of that process once it's started. So that in itself is fraught with complications and potential problems. But also at this point in time, that's still only subject to legislation not being changed in the local government commissions roles being as they are at present. So that's also something that we don't know is confirmed for the future. So just putting a bit of wariness around relying on that as an option at this point in time. But please noting in the first instance my conflict with the local government commissioner. Kia ora.
Thank you, Bonita. Noted. Donna, your hands up.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
We're a bit blind at the moment as to how the mayoral forum, where we've got to there. Can we have an update, please? Obviously, there was an article in Saturday's paper that didn't show great light. I'd really like to understand relationships between all the 4 councils right now.
So the mayoral forum endorsed this option going forward at its last meeting. Said it would take it to its 4 councils for decision, which is what's happening today.
So, and relationships are good right now?
Yes. So the last time we met as a mayoral forum was a couple of weeks ago, and this was the process that we agreed on, a redraft of the heads of agreement, and the one that in front of you, the papers that accompany it, reflect that, and all councils.
So the mayors have all agreed with this paper to date, or is this new to everybody at this point?
They're all considering it today, I believe, with their full councils as we are.
I'm just going to give my opinion. I think that we should leave it to the 3 territorials. They have the power in this. There's either 2 or more can come up with a plan. I think we should support them in it, but I think we should let them get on with the job. I think we've caused more grief, from what I gather, than actually helping things. And I think this agreement is too early. I think there shouldn't be a heads of agreement until we have a plan approved in September, and then we start doing some work. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, I think I might just respond to that. You can't have a plan approved in September if you haven't put forward a proposal prior to.
But this isn't...
No, hang on. Excuse me, Donna, I'm talking. And the conversations that we have had with DIA and ministers both support the ministers and the DIA working on behalf of the ministers, support a strong regional approach to this, and any proposals, this is their words, not mine, are going to be enhanced with regional council involvement. So the criteria is that 2 TLAs can submit, a minimum of 2 TLAs can submit a proposal, but there is nothing stopping regional councils being a part of that proposal. And to be frank with you, they are encouraging that because that shows regional alliance. These are regional plans. Jonathan.
Thanks, Craig, and everybody. Sorry I can't be there in person. I'm in Auckland at the moment, but it's good to have technology that connects us. Look, I thoroughly agree with what Steve said, that what we should be doing at this point in time is having a really good stock take of our services, because in the end, it's going to be the district councils, whatever form they finally be in, who are going to procure those services from whatever the TRC management become. And I think that's the essential work at this point in time that we need to be very busy at, because everything hinges on how we can support the Taranaki region and how we mesh in with the territorial authorities. I guess I'm not surprised at the haste, but I don't know whether being first and fast actually brings the best benefit, because I know that even though the compulsory backstop sounds very daunting, if you were part of that, what they have said in the publication that was linked into these papers is that they're going to be taking into consideration all of the Head Start pathway information, data, those sorts of things. Sometimes a slower approach gets a better result. And I just want to raise my caution that things that are swift are never smooth. And things that are smooth are never swift. So I know we've got a deadline to make a decision for 9th of August. But my concern is that we are presented today with a request for a decision. I think our chair and CE has had the benefit of lots of discussions and meetings, but I think for the rest of us, we are learning fast in this space. I just wanted to highlight that. I am concerned about where the other territorial authorities sit. I have got no visibility on that, only what you've just mentioned, Craig, from your recent meeting a couple of weeks ago. I do hear rumours of quite a bit of, concern about pace, and I just want to highlight that at this point in time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan. Just comment on that, and Steve can confirm if I'm not right, but I think this heads of agreement is not committing us to the Head Start. It's beginning some work so that to consider whether or not we're going to be in a position to go with the Head Start, and if we're able to come up with a proposal or some proposals and what they may look like. But any decision on actually committing to putting in a proposal and doing the Head Start would obviously come back to council for sign-off. So let's just be careful not to confuse the Heads of Agreement with the Head Start. The Heads of Agreement is working together on this, but it doesn't mean we're committed to doing a Head Start. It'll just place us in a position and give Helen and staff the right direction as to that's something that we would be able to achieve if we were to go there. Steve?
Yeah, no, that's dead right, Chair, and it's explicit in the recommendations that any Head Start proposal would need to be signed off by council or four councils as proposed before it got lodged. So this is keeping the option of you lodging, or the multiple councils across the region lodging a Head Start proposal should they so wish. In 10 weeks' time, as Helen says, we're already nearly a third of the way through the time frame. And we have done some work to try and preserve that option for the councils to at least be able to even have a discussion. If we'd done nothing, it'd probably already be too late, I would suggest, to do something that would meet Head Start, given the level of work and importance of community engagement of some form and all the rest of it. So this is really just keeping that door open, but you could close it at this stage and say, no, we don't want to do anything. That's a perfectly viable option for you. This gives you a door you can choose to walk through in about 2 months' time, 8 weeks' time is the time frame, if you so choose. And if the region, and that again will be subject to all four councils, assuming they all agree to be in, but those who do agree to be into this, at least having that as an option available to them in 8 weeks' time.
Does that make sense, Jonathan?
Yeah, thanks for that reply. I think point 2 in the executive summary, it says council is asked to approve participation in the Head Start reform pathway and the Taranaki Future Local Government Partnership Program, etc., etc. So on that point, I think that there's a broad consideration taking place today, and I do note, because I did see that as a separate point, that we won't enter into the Head Start program until after it's been ratified by the council. Just one other comment, if I could make, Craig. Could you give us some background on why the Oversight Committee, though it's been stated is not the Mayoral Forum, but has all members of the Mayoral Forum in it, but no other, whereas the steering group has 2 council appointees from each council. My view is that if you had a broader group of people in the oversight, you would unearth lots of issues that maybe the Mayoral Forum may not, simply because you have broader representation of what I would hope to be quite skilled people. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve, can I refer that one to me? It was a question of it not being the Mayoral Forum because it needed a different governance structure, but...
Well, it was a matter of getting a structure that has some authority. The Mayoral Forum has no formal structure or role. So it was a matter of, given this was a group that was going to oversee a reasonably important work program and need to be able to provide some guidance to the organisation, or to the chief executives and their teams that are doing the work, we thought it important to at least give it the status of a committee to be able to give it some delegations and responsibilities.
Thank you.
So that, yes, so the work is being done by that committee.
The work's been overseen by a committee of the chief executives and alternates, and I suggested there to be another senior staff member from each council as well.
And Mike's got his hand up. Great.
Yeah. So yeah, just to be clear, so that's staff doing the work.
Yeah.
There's governance oversight from the Mayoral Forum, but then there's further oversight from everybody's council.
Everybody that's signing things off. And look, the reality is we've got 8 weeks left. So you're probably going to have one meeting of the oversight committee in that 8 weeks, well, maybe 2 actually. One halfway through, and then one about 6 weeks' time, a couple of weeks before a report's due to go to the 4 councils in about 8 weeks' time. So we're talking 2 meetings. That's all we're going to logistically have time to do, given those timeframes we're working to.
Mike, I see your physical hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry about the lateness. I had problems getting into the program. But anyhow, I tend to agree with Donna and Jonathan. Back in 25 November, the government moved that we replaced regional council with the board of district mayors, which I believe is right, to develop that regional reorganisational plan over a 2-year period. And comments about Neil Volsky and Phil Nixon are totally different to what we're trying to do here. So I agree with the previous speakers. Let's just sit back and see what happens, because those other meetings are apparently happening today, to see where the other councils are going.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. The comments from Mayor Volsky and Mayor Nixon, obviously at the point in time stating that they saw a 2 model scenario as the best scenario. I had stated that I obviously, and I think I mentioned the Local Government Act, my job and your job and our job is to take a regional view, and I saw in the best interest of region initially potentially a single unitary, but open to other ideas. We discussed that at length, everybody's different points of view at that Mayoral Forum, and this is after those comments were made in the paper, and we have agreed, and it's pretty obvious in the papers before you, we are not discussing or choosing a model here. We certainly weren't discussing or choosing a model at the Mayoral Forum. That is open. There's the criteria there, but what they will accept and what is the best outcome, we haven't gone out to their communities yet. We are going to try and engage and get some feedback, what's important to people. We'll see what else is happening around the country. But Mike, it could well be a north and a south unitary. It could well be a rural and an urban unitary. It could well be a single unitary. It could be all 3 that are proposed. That work hasn't been done yet, and those decisions haven't been made. So all the mayors are on board with leaving that open and not making any more statements about preferences or anything at this point in time, because we just don't know, Steve.
Yeah, and look, I think it's entirely a distinct possibility we may well end up with 2 or 3 models to be put forward in the first process, and the informal feedback we've had, that's entirely acceptable to or get considered. So we may not actually have to make a decision on one model versus another model, and by August. We would need to have done that by March of next year, but I can easily foresee 2 or 3 models being put forward or being put on the table for the councils to consider in August. Whether you want to narrow that down to 1 or leave it at 2 or 3 is an issue, that a future decision that the councils will get asked to make.
So yeah, so if any of you are thinking that doing nothing might be the best option, I would just strongly advise you that leaving the regional council functions, and we leave, and just leaving that up in the air for whatever as a backstop and potentially the status quo, then what happens to regional council and all the functions and everything that we do, we should certainly try and be involved in finding the solution and the best way forward for that to be managed in the future. Benita, you've had your hand up for a while.
Hilda, yeah, just support that kōrero around being involved in the conversation. This doesn't predetermine us to making any decision about any model. All this does is commits us to being a part of the conversation about what's best for Aotearoa, however that comes out in the wash. So I'm really comfortable with that. I also just want to back Craig up in the meeting that we had with regional sector. Craig directly asked the Minister about regional council's involvement in these conversations. And although we can't trigger the review, the Head Start program, he is very supportive of regional councils being involved in the conversations because of our approach. So let's not confuse one with the other. We still need to be at the table having the conversations about what's best for Aotearoa, what functions we need to roll out to whichever structure gets it, but we just can't trigger the process. That's the limit of our involvement. So I'm really supportive of opening the door for these conversations to start happening. Otherwise, I think we do our whole Aotearoa a disservice by not participating. Thanks, Craig.
Thank you. Jonathan?
Thanks, Craig, very much. Yeah, look, I agree with what what Benita's saying there. You mentioned before that, through this 10-week period, there could be several models that are presented. How does that put us for the 9th of August if we want to participate in the Head Start? Do we say that actually there is it's hard to see into the future, but essentially what I'm trying to get at is how open will the conversations be? We've got quite a tight prescriptive heads of agreement that has the mayoral forum, so to speak, involved in it. And we have our chief executive coming back in September with a further recommendation rather than asking for presumably you will be asking us to, a response from the council on what we consider to be should be the next step. And I think that what I'm trying to convey is that if you think that I'm apprehensive, then I am, you're right, simply because it's a very tight, constrained, swift process that we haven't had a lot of discussion about, even though it's been on our agenda since December last year. And, Craig, you have talked to us here and there about it, but as a council around the table, we would be trusting you and the other mayors. And if you come back with, say, 3 options, actually, I don't mind that because it gives us a chance to, to really test all 3. And that's what I'd like. But how would you then participate in the 9th of August submission? Would you say we are on the way, but we're not quite there yet?
Exactly. We would say we've identified these 3 options, each of which has various pros and cons for Taranaki, given its current state and its future challenges and the direction in which we believe the region needs to move. We want to continue working on those 3 options, and we'll narrow them down to a preferred option by the second checkpoint in March 27. Because remember, in August, Cabinet are really just endorsing these are the regions or the areas, sub-areas that should carry on. We're endorsing to carry on and do further work. So it's really is this going in the right direction, a direction with which we're comfortable, assuming we're still the government after November the 7th. And now that's an important assumption, as I said. And what they really need by March of 27, and the Cabinet paper talks about papers going back to Cabinet in April to say, basically approve this is the preferred regions that are going to the next step of being included into legislation, and they'll also make a decision at that point, is it bespoke legislation for 1 or 2 regions, for example, or is it generic legislation for the sector as a whole? So those issues are all up in the air, but they need to, by March 27, have an idea of who's actually going to get incorporated into the legislation that's intended to be introduced, I think, in the 3rd quarter of 27 to be passed by early 2028.
Okay.
All right, so yeah, I don't think there's any, and we've had that discussion with officials. They see no problem with 2 or 3 options being put forward. or if this is the rationale on where we're at, if they can see that analysis and that it's work moving in the right direction, they'd be comfortable with that sort of approach.
Thank you. That's a good answer. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. John?
It's really just a comment, really. It's, I think it's really looking at it like a program of work, and I think you go back to that timeline that you put up, which is what the timeline was in the pack anyway. And each of those end dates is just a milestone, right? And so the milestone is a decision to make.
Yeah.
And so at the moment, what we're saying is go to milestone 1, right, which is August, and then we make another decision, right? But we need to do that preparatory work.
Spot on. And indeed, the agreement, as you'll see, includes a specific clause for all 4 councils saying, do we want to carry with this heads of agreement, or are we backing up and going home, going somewhere different? So that's the whole thing gets reviewed. Not only do we put forward options, but do we carry on with this work program, or do we pull the plug completely? So you're committing to effectively about 10 weeks work, or 12 weeks work by the time you review the heads of agreement, decide whether to stop completely or move on.
And I agree, it's vital to have the whole region. Right? That's what we're signed up for.
Yeah.
It's on the wall up there.
It is. And look, I think there is a couple of obviously timeouts and check-ins on the way. I see we've got an ordinary meeting on 30th of June, so I think we can make this a standard item for an update.
Yes.
There's another ordinary meeting on 11th of August, and I believe you can put your proposals in a few days late, so we could absolutely get sign off in that August 11 meeting, as far as I view the timelines and limitations, or have it subject to sign off. So yeah, there'll be some formal ordinary meeting check-ins along the way as to progress and updates, and that can be a standard line item, I think, moving forward. Anyone? Donna.
One of my concerns was also, among lots of others, that if one party pulled out, then I think it was the chair could then change the agreement or whatever. I think as a regional council that if one of the other parties pulls out, then we really need to take a backward step and kind of be independent to be able to support any of the territorials. So I don't think that this agreement should happen unless all 4 parties are a part of it.
Is that an option? Steve, how's it set
up? So the agreement at the moment is assuming all 4 parties agree to it. If one party decides not to, then we haven't got an agreement, and you'll probably be too late to renegotiate something given the Head Start timeframes. So it's probably all over.
So,
in terms of Head Start,
and that's not really want to be. We want to be taking a full front on.
That's because you've got to be careful here about, as I said, we've got 8 weeks effectively to do some work. It is unreasonable to go through another round of trying to negotiate new agreements and then in about 4 weeks' time come to staff and say, please develop me a Head Start agreement in 4 weeks. So either all 4 get on board, because we're not going to have time to go around in circles, it seems to me, and still hit the Head Start. Now, you could go through another process to have a longer term work program beyond Head Start, which could pick up on, as Helen had said, either the commission process or something else, or run a risk of the work we do being taken into account by a CTB that gets put in place post the backstop process. Again, that would be consistent with my proposition that you should do some work for those who come after us to pick up and say, yes, we agree with, or no, we don't, but here's a blueprint you might want to think about as you're doing work and determining what to do with the regional councils. There is no guarantee, of course, that the management functions of, in fact, I think the government's intention is that, the government's clear intention is that regional councils will disappear, as will TLAs. The paper talks about the formation of one unitary authority across every region in the country being their preferred option, but with leaving scope in many cases, and this is quoting from the Cabinet paper, in many cases a single unitary authority would be feasible, but in some larger regions with more complex issues, 2 or at most 3 unitary authorities per region could be contemplated. So the government's clear proposal is, we intend that the outlined proposals need not cover a whole region, but should focus on structural change that reduces the number of local authorities within a region. So yes, this is amalgamation. Yes, it is amalgamation towards a unitary authority, is what the Cabinet paper says is the current government's policy. Now, if you do some good work, there are ways, a range of alternative models that are already been emerging from the work we've been doing and the conversations we've been having with other regions that are doing this work that do absolutely suggest 2 unitaries and other things with a shared service arrangement, not only for regional council functions but potentially other functions. Transport is another area where they are signalling they expect to see that moving to a higher area. Transport presents opportunities for new and integrated service delivery models, so the assessment criteria for Head Start proposals will clearly signal the need to consolidate local and regional transport functions. They want to see TLA, transportation, roading, parks and reserves, roading and regional functions of passenger transport, regional and transport planning brought together as a regional service. That's an obvious one, again, that could be included in a regional service delivery entity under a 2 or 3 unitary model. It would just be a unitary, you'd probably change the name of a unitary because it's not the way we traditionally think about a unitary, but it does preserve a level of local council structures beneath the one big council for the region type model. So there are a range of options there, and there's some very clear signals in the Cabinet paper about government's expectations. And our view is that you can create models that is consistent with the government's direction while also preserving the things that really do need to stay local in terms of local decision making and input in different communities across Taranaki and indeed similar regions in other parts of the country. What we're asking for is, do you want us to do the work, or do you want to leave it to whoever comes along after 2028? Your choice.
Well, for myself, I want us to do the work. Yes. And I don't want to sit back and be the recipient of whatever the government thinks is a good idea. It will lack the local flavour that only we can bring, because we know Taranaki better than central government will ever know Taranaki. And it seems a no-brainer to me that we would participate as is being proposed. So this proposal will definitely have my support, and I'm happy to move that it should be adopted.
Sorry, I'm not convinced, because in these recommendations it talks about if councils withdraw that this agreement continues, and that's not what you said, Steve. So I'm still against it because I don't think it's very different to the mayoral forum, and I still would like to see, I'd like us to support the territorials in them coming up with a model.
Can I just answer Councillor Cram's question there? Clause Y in the agreement does say any party who withdraws from the agreement may join it again at a future date. That clause clearly contemplates that all 4 councils have signed the agreement in the first instance. So it is consistent with what I indicated.
Yeah.
This agreement is conditional on 4 councils agreeing to sign up to it. Otherwise, you need to go back and renegotiate a new agreement with 2 or 3 or something else. The provision in there is once it's signed, a party has the right to withdraw. That's the clause that you're reading and referring to.
Well, it comes up twice. And
why? Because if all 4 councils join up, and at the review in September 26, which is a condition of the agreement, 1 or more councils may wish to withdraw from it. This clause contemplates that they can go in and out if they want to. It's giving those individual councils the freedom. But this agreement will not exist as it's currently worded unless all 4 councils agree to join it.
But then it allows the chair to change the agreement if someone withdraws, doesn't it?
Where does it do that?
I don't think it does.
Doesn't do that.
There will be any minor amendments after today coming from some of the other councils, then we have the authority to change minor amendments. That's all. But I think you're getting a little bit confused there. So the off-ramp, you might want to call it, the ability for councils to leave and maybe get back on board again, was included at the request of the other councils. Now, the other councils were involved in drafting this heads of agreement. Their CEs were involved with drafting this heads of agreement, all 4 councils. So this isn't something that we've come up with and we're throwing at them, right? This is something that we have all come up with, all 4 councils this at CE level together. And as Steve said, if we can't sign up to a heads of agreement, all 4 councils today, then that heads of agreement doesn't exist, all right? And yes, we're talking as a council, we'd still like to, we'll still continue doing the work, I think. But ideally, this is what the other councils asked for. They were involved in drafting it this way, and it was at their request. If it gets to a point they want to come out of that heads of agreement, then there would be a mechanism in which they would be able to.
We're starting to get too much into the detail, Chair, which will come on later. And this is a start. Turn the engine, and then we put it in gear and start moving, and that's when the detail will come in. So I think, all due respect, Connor, I think you're trying to get into the detail, which will come after the heads of agreement is signed. We have to start the motion first.
So there is a motion. I have one more question from Jonathan before I will ask for a seconder. Jonathan.
Thank you, Craig. I am encouraged to hear that we have a number of ordinary council meetings where we can ask questions and we can have a conversation about this, and further than what we are today. And I appreciate that very much, because I just didn't see that in the document, but that's what happens when you read black and white on paper. I agree with what Susan was saying in terms of I would rather us to design and contribute rather than have been told what to do from Wellington. No disrespect to my former colleagues, but you can see they've done quite a bit of pivoting already on the subject, and congratulate them for their flexibility. And I just think we ought to be doing the same with all of our 4 councils in Taranaki. And thank you, Craig, for indicating that is what's going to happen in terms of that ongoing conversation amongst ourselves around our table. I'm pleased to hear that this heads of agreement does require all 4 councils to agree to it, to participate. And I do see that this is the start of the conversation in a more formal way. I've got no objection to that. So thank you for the time we've had today to discuss this.
Thank you, Jonathan. Are you happy to second the motion?
Just one other question first. There's quite a bit there also in terms of Steve's delegation. Do we have any sense of what this will cost in the short term, up to August, maybe up to March, and then any further costs after that? Because that's going to be something that's going to be a rate burden, no doubt. Have you had any indication?
We've done some very rough work, but that is making a series of assumptions. We'll bring something back to the June council meeting that's had a bit more work and refinement on it, and some of that does depend on who is joining and not joining with this work program. In terms of the Head Start process influences that. It also depends on where. In fact, if it's not, we're not going into Head Start, then the cost structures and including short term will change. So
if we don't go into Head Start, what you're also saying is that.
So look, I'm confident we can manage within our current budgets the costs we'll incur between now and August.
Okay.
Okay, are you happy to second, Jonathan?
Yes, I will second. I'm slightly
You don't have to.
wondering this, but I've been happy with our conversation. Maybe somebody else can second, and I'm happy to support the motion.
All right, John will. So moved, Susan, seconded, John. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Against. I'm still not happy. So can I put in writing I'm against, as I don't agree with this B part. But also, I just think we need to let the territorials get on, still do the work that Steve was talking about, and that what the regional council functions are, and support what the other three territorials come up with at this point. So that is my final on this.
Yeah, not sure that would happen without this, but anyway, we've noted that. Thanks, Donna. Lee.
I think just the most important thing from my point of view is that we're bringing the full region together on this, and that is critical to this moving forward and us being one Taranaki, and at the moment that's the number one most important thing. So hopefully the next other district councils today see the same thing as one Taranaki.
Yep, well said.
Absolutely, absolutely agree. Taranaki way. Okay. Anything else?
Thank you very much.
Okay, that brings the meeting to a close. You just find it. Closing karakia.
Kia mai, ahaura, ahaukaha, ahamoa, ki runga, ki raro, ki roto, ki waho, rere hau, ahe mai.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor.